The Black Templars Codex for Warhammer 40k 10th edition will soon be upon us, and we're going to talk about that today. Some of this we'll already have known from GW, and some is still speculation, but we're going to get into it anyway and try to get a feel for how Black Templars are going to be doing in the near future. Grab your bolter and your chainsword, and let's crusade for the God Emperor. Welcome back to Starhammer. Black Templars are certainly a bit late to the party, given how we might have very little time left in 10th edition if Games Workshop sticks to their 3-year release cycle. But better late than never. Like all codices, it comes in the Collector's Edition and the Standard Edition, both with the same content, but the Collector's Edition is just generally sexier and more expensive as a result. Black Templars also aren't doing so hot right now, sitting at about a 45% win rate last time I checked. Templar vows started off pretty strong this edition and carried us through a lot of it, helped us keep our heads mostly above water, but it seems that time has passed. The news, for better or worse, is that the Black Templars are about to come into their own and be a truly independent Space Marine army. How? Well, we're losing Oath of Moment, the juicy Space Marine army rule that allows us full hit rerolls. It's getting replaced by Templar vows for the army rule, and giving Templars a truly unique, non-codex compliant feel. Instead, you now pick one of 4 vows which can now stack with other detachment rules. There are some restrictions in doing so, but we'll get to that in a minute. These still last the whole game, but they've undergone some major changes from the index detachment. Abhor the Witch, Destroy the Witch is your anti-psyker vow. Good for going up against Grey Knights and other freaks in nature that are psychers, this vow allows you to reroll charges against psyker units and gives all melee weapons precision. I know this isn't the most fantastical vow, and I've never used it once in the entirety of this edition, but if you tend to go up against Thousand Suns or Grey Knights a lot, this could actually be pretty useful. Accept any challenge no matter the odds is pretty simple. If the toughness of your opponent's unit is equal to or greater than the strength of your melee attacks, you add 1 to the wound roll. This is going to come in clutch when fighting tougher enemies like Death Guard, as it can allow you to get in a few of those extra wounds you might need for a kill. Also, great for use against a lot of monster units you'd find in an army like Tyranids. Suffer Not the Unclean to Live gives you fallback and charge, potentially letting you maximize bonuses and the like. It also gives you a lot more leniency when making a pile-in or consolidate move, since you'll no longer have to move closer to the nearest model, but instead the nearest enemy unit. So that could give you plenty more opportunities to swing and allow you to really get creative with positioning. But finally, Uphold the Honor of the Emperor is about focusing on infantry-specific units. Here's where it gets cool. It gives all infantry units sticky objectives and allows you to advance and perform actions. That is insane. This boosts your utility by a lot, and if you want to pair this with a bonus to move and advance from like Wrath or Procession, you can easily get to where you need to be to score more secondaries and give yourself a pretty good lead. Besides the Psyker one, these vows are looking pretty tasty, especially that +1 to wound. I feel like these are really going to give Templars a truly special feel compared to other Space Marine armies. Melee for a while did have sort of a samey feel between armies, and throughout this edition, GW has tried to spice things up a bit. Sometimes that works quite well, sometimes not. Looking at you, Emperor's children. But I applaud them for trying to ensure that each army feels special. I think they really pulled it off with Templars, at least on paper. The fact that these can stack with other detachments, except First Company, means you can come up with some seriously nasty moves. Take Stormlance and get advance and charge on everything, and paired with the right vow, you can fuck someone's day up. But as I said, there are limits to greatness. You can only include units from one chapter in your army, so only Black Templars and the Black Templars list. No stinky psychers. You can't use First Company Task Force attachment. And you lose access to the Gladiator, Repulsor, Impulsor, Land Raider Crusader, and Stern Guard vets from the Space Marines Codex. Why do you lose access to those? Yeah, well, because we have our own versions. But let's get into the detachments, and let's start with what we know, then we'll get into the more vague stuff. Ancients actually have a bit of use in this new detachment, and it'll be a great way to take your new Black Templar Ancient for a spin. Vindication Task Force reads that each time an attack targets an Ancient unit and you're within range of 1 or more objectives, if that strength is greater than your toughness, your attacker subtracts 1 from their wound roll. In addition, each time a Crusader makes a Righteous Zeal move, which is like a surge move basically, you can end that move closer to an objective instead of the closest enemy unit. We also got a peek at an enhancement for your new Ancient that'll give his unit a 5-up invul, as well as a stratagem that lets you revive destroyed Ancients as close as possible to where they were destroyed, but not within engagement range and with full wounds remaining. I don't think I need to explain how good that is. This detachment is all about outscoring your opponent. Combine that with Uphold the Honor of the Emperor to get sticky and advance and perform, and you have the ability to score some serious points and a higher chance of staying on those points if you find yourself needing to defend. Companions of Vehemence is our next detachment, and while we know the rules allow us to re-roll, advance, and charges, the rest of what I'm about to say is still leaked, so take it how you will. I will go ahead and throw up the original summary right here so you can read it, and you can pause if you want to do that, but I am going to reformat it a little bit on this Google Doc to make it a little bit easier to read on the screen. Anyway, this detachment is all about dishing out as much righteous fury as possible, and that's made evident with the enhancements and strats. For enhancements, we have Incendiary Animus, which grants +1 to AP in melee, Oathbound Exemplar, which allows this unit to advance and perform actions, so still some good scoring potential there. Merciless Denunciation grants full hit rerolls in melee, and Zealous Vanguard gives us 6-inch scout move at the start of the game. In stratagems, it seems we'll be getting a 6-inch pile-in, a Consolidate Anywhere, assuming this means you can consolidate in whatever direction you choose, not just the closest point or enemy. Melee Precision, which everyone already has with Epic Challenge. A mini Oath against monsters, which I think that probably will mean adding 1 to hit and wound, or potentially rerolls to hit of 1. I doubt it would be the whole roll as a mini Oath. Reactive moves to piss off shooting armies, and the ability to force Battle Shock on the charge. This detachment sounds like it's going to be my favorite. I've already got 2 armies built out for scoring, that's my T-Sons and my Custodes, so being able to run Black Templars dedicated solely to attrition sounds like a ton of fun to me. Do you normally win games like that? No. Is it going to be a lot of fun? Yes. Looping back to Vindication Task Force for a minute. Remember, our detachment rolls a -1 to wound against you while on objectives and surge toward objectives for Crusader squads. For enhancements, we're looking at Deep Strike for a unit, 5 up Invuln Aura, a -2 to charge for your enemy, and a +3 fight on death. In stratagems, we can revive Ancients, which we went over a minute ago, +1 to AP while on a point, ignore cover and hit modifiers, great against Chronomancers, -1 to hit for your enemies, and a +1 to hit versus killer. I'm not really sure what that means. Sounds like a fight on death or something like that. And a 2 CP counter charge, so a more expensive heroic intervention. I imagine this would probably do mortals or something on the charge in addition to the action itself to justify that extra CP cost. This detachment appears to be focused on resilience. Black Templars are just Space Marines after all, and they do tend to get picked off pretty handily against high volumes of fire and heavy hitters. So given these options for being able to tank a few more rounds than normal and retaliate, your opponent's going to be hard pressed to get you off a point without a fight. This one's going to require a bit more strategic thinking than the Companions of Vehemence, as you're going to want to choose which units are worth the enhancements in CP to keep your board control, as opposed to just running in and cutting down as many units as possible. I think this one will be a lot less cut and dry, and will probably have the most variety in terms of how it's played, and that's what I'm really excited about. Finally, we've got Godhammer Assault Force, our very own transport detachment. Yay! This gives disembarked units a +1 to hit and force Battle Shock. Not sure if that means on the charge or an aura, but it could be either. For enhancements, we're looking at a +2 to strength, +1 to damage, a -1 to battle shock tests, assuming for enemies nearby, an ignore cover aura, which is pretty mean if you're running things like Hellblasters alongside them, and granting a transport a 9-inch scout move, so you can really speed that Land Raider up the field. For stratagems, we're looking at a 6-inch move post-fight, assuming that means a 6-inch move if you're not engaged after the fight phase. Disembark into engagement range, move through terrain models, very useful for big shit like Land Raiders to get where they need to go. Full wound rerolls for the Land Raider, and a 2 CP -1 damage for your transports. Okay, out of all the dumb transport attachments I've seen this edition, this one actually wouldn't be that bad. Being able to disembark into engagement range is fucking insane, but I would love to see something that grants a charge after advance or dismount for units in the transports. Something like that could be a bit spicy, but that would be a pretty good 2 CP strat in my opinion. I think a 2 CP cost for a -1 damage stratagem is a little much. Overall though, I think taking away Oath and letting Templar vows stack with detachments as an army rule is the right move. It'll add a very unique twist on playing this army and make them stand out from the crowd of innumerable Space Marines everyone else is playing. I know the community reaction has been a bit mixed, but I want to remind you that these are just leaks. Some stuff we know, obviously, but when you see leaks for stuff, don't immediately take it to heart. Use it as a way to gauge what's coming down the pipeline. Don't give into the hype or the coping. Just use it as a general idea of what to expect. And again, this is all leaked. As of right now, I haven't seen anything concrete as of the recording of this video. That might change, but you get the idea. Templars are in a pretty dull place right now, and while I'll miss the melee bonuses that vows currently give, I'm very glad Games Workshop has made it to where we can play around with vows to find a playstyle that is truly unique to our individual armies. Right, so our characters have undergone a few changes as well. Let's start with the one causing the most butthurt, Helbricht. He's going down by 20 points, thank God, but he's losing his 5-up crits. This does kind of blow, but he is getting a +1 to attacks and strength for melee, and allegedly a better high martial ability. I don't know how much better that can get, but you won't hear me complaining. I'm a bit salty about losing the 5-up crits, but for an extra attack along with the extra strength and potential and even more brutal high martial ability, I'm keeping my mind open. Grimaldos drops by 20 points as well, but loses his 5-up Feel No Pain aura and is gaining new relic effects, though I don't know what those will be. I would personally like to see something like 2 auras and 1 unit ability from them to try and depict him shouting litanies and inspiring his brothers around him. So maybe like +1 to OC, advance and charge for the unit, rerolls of 1 to wound. There's a ton of different things that could be. Those are just a few off the top of my head, but that's the general dynamic I'd like to see. It doesn't say anything about his actual self-abilities changing, so we will assume those are staying the same with hit rerolls for the unit. My main man, the Emperor's Champion, is about to be a whole lot scarier. Finally has Lone Op, about time, has a once per battle dev wound against characters, and is going up by 15 points. I've also heard he's going to get a 5-up anti-character on the strike profile, and an 8-inch move, and his Sigismund's Air ability to reduce the damage under attack to 0 will now extend into the shooting phase as well. Again, this isn't confirmed yet, at least as far as I know, but with him going up by 15 points, all that would track. The Castellan apparently hits harder, generates CP somehow, and gives rerolls of 1 and goes up by 15. Sound of it? Not a bad deal, they're kind of mid as they are right now. Finally, the Marshal has received Helbricht's 5-up crits and gains more attacks if surrounded, while going up by 5 points. Nothing about the stratagem reduction is listed, so he's probably keeping that. I don't run Marshals all that often, mainly because I only have 2, but I think this will be a great way to get more of them onto the field. I know it certainly would be for me. For the rest of the nerds, our Crusader squad's lost Scout but gained a Surge move. It's a fine trade-off if you ask me. Still 150 for 10, but they did drop to 300 for a full stack. Sword Bros the same points, but get more attacks and sustained hits alongside a fallback reaction move. I guess this means they can fall back after a fight, so they can charge back in, but they're losing their +1 to attacks or damage in exchange for all that. That's probably fine. Our Terminators are going up by 5, but will force Battle Shock at a -1 whenever an enemy falls back from them. Not a lot to say here. That can really mess with high leadership units like Flayed Ones or Demons, and give you the option to get some charge bonuses or some shooting to soften them up before you charge back in there. Stern Guards seem to have gotten the short end of the stick. They no longer have sustained and are just generally weaker, but come in at an 85 point cost. I never ran these guys very often, but yeah, I don't know anyone having a meltdown over Stern Guards being even shittier than they already were. With our vehicles, the Land Raider Crusader now gives rerolls to units that disembark, which is going to make that initial fight phase from the Assault Ramp ability particularly nasty, especially if it's full rerolls, but it's still only 220 points. Nerf coming soon. The Repulsor now allows a reactionary disembark if it takes fire, and the Executioner gets vague rerolls when near allies. From what I saw, it doesn't specify if it's hit rerolls or wound rerolls, but it's some kind of reroll. The Executioner is my tank of choice, and that thing is freaky enough already, so rerolls are really going to amp it up. They're both going to be at 180 and 220 points respectively, both taking a mild points buff. Gladiators are unchanged, except they drop by 10 points. Same with the Impulsor. For our special new units, the Execrator Super Chaplain gets an advance and charge aura, so that sounds really nice. 2 melee attacks if running the proper loadout. We heard this from GW a while back. So he's going to be a nightmare in melee and is apparently only going to be 70 points. You can probably just run your normal Chaplain models as this guy in the meantime until you get a real one. The Crusade Ancient clocks in at 85 points and has a 4-up fight on death, buffed OC to 5 on a unit kill, and can be attached to units with leaders. This guy's going to have a ton of potential with that, and I think he's going to pair very well with some Sword Bros or a Crusader squad, maybe even Blade Guard. I know my beautiful Blade Guard Ancient that I never use, but is one of my favorite models I've ever painted, now finally will have a purpose. So when it's all said and done, how are we looking? Are we so back, or are we cooked? Fellas, I gotta say, I think we're fucking back. You guys have heard me gush about the potential of vows and detachment combos all videos, so I'm not gonna make you sit through that again, but the Black Templars are really about to become, truly, their own very special Space Marine army. There's also Wrathful Procession, our forgotten Grotmus detachment from last year, that can provide some insane plays with the new vows. Gaining +1 to strength and +2 to move and shit like that, on top of what our vows can do, combined with the right characters and enhancements, it's gonna absolutely shred on the tabletop. Mark my words. But I don't understand the amount of negativity I've been seeing surrounding this stuff. There's a few minor things like the Sword Bro changes, Helbricht losing 5-up crits, and losing Oath that did and do weird me out, but I think that, I know that there's enough here to not just keep our heads above water for the rest of the edition, but also walk up the beach and take that fucking point from the Death Guard and Knight armies that are in the top spot right now. We might be coming in at the end of this edition, but y'all, we're going to finish this out on one hell of a strong note. That's it for this one, y'all. I know several of my regular subs are Black Templar players like me, so I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say. But as always, I want to hear from all y'all. Are you as hopeful as I am, or are you out here huffing the copium? Let me know in the comments. Copers will be banned. Banned! As always, drop a like if you like it, subscribe if you really liked it, and don't forget to hit that little notification bell, check the community tab for shitposts and shenanigans. I'll see y'all in the next one.